Good evening again to Zoom at 8. My name is Julianne Peterson, and I am your host every Tuesday night. And we've been here for over 5 years. It's going to be 6 years in April. My goodness, that is a long stretch. And Mark Gross has been here nearly every week, and Rhea as well. So we appreciate all the support. We're here to help you network and learn with industry experts. We want to make you the best and most knowledgeable investors in the community. So it's been tough. It's been a tough 2024. You guys have all been able to survive to 25, but here we are in 2025. Has anything changed? Not a lot. I will tell you the treasuries keep going up and up and up. About every week, we've got another 5 basis point increase. So it is challenging to get some of these deals done. I think it's another year. You're hearing that we've got a lot of money on the sidelines, but those are for institutional deals. So I think everybody should be in a path to building relationships with investors, because at the end of the day, you've got a lender who's going to bring the money, and then you got to find these investors. So if you can't get these investors, you don't have a deal. And so you also want to be looking at your personal financial statement to see who you need on your team. If I'm going to bring 4 million and I'm going for a $20 million deal, there's going to be some gaps in there. When you need a 14 or $15 million loan and you only have 4, you're going to need to find those partners that will help you execute on this deal. So as long as you understand what you're getting into, what are some of the challenges, then we're ready to roll. And we're going to get on with the show, because tonight I want to introduce you. This is a perfect time to bring in Dr. Jamil Sayegh. Why? Because he is an international spiritual wisdom teacher, energy healer, life transformation coach, integrative naturopathic physician, and a host of the Transformation Starts Today podcast. He specializes in helping leaders, champions, and high performers, including world champion athletes, best-selling authors, entrepreneurs like yourself, and business professionals, unlock their true potential and create extraordinary lives filled with vibrant health, passionate relationships, and lasting fulfillment. I had the great honor to work with Dr. Jamil probably 2 years ago, and I was able to work through some blocks. I was able to improve my sales funnel and got some great support. I can only tell you wonderful things. Dr. Jamil helped push through some binds that I was in, and really was encouraging to me and my business, my professional and my personal life. So I thought tonight would be a great way for him to come in and talk about the top 3 and maybe 5 success secrets that will ignite your 2025. We've got to have a path. We've got to have ways to improve ourselves. All right. So Dr. Jamil, good evening. Welcome back to Zoom at 8. I'm so glad you're here. How are you?
Thank you so much, Julie. I'm doing well. Excited to be with you all, and always want to begin whenever I do get to be with the community in the evening. I'm wearing these, and people are like, "Why do you look like Bono?" And so these are blue light blocking glasses. I wear them for a variety of health reasons. They have a lot of benefits, but won't get into that now. But that's why these are on. Someone's like,
That
"Why do you
is
have
awesome.
glasses?"
Oh, that is awesome. Now, before you get started, can everybody go up to the top of their screen and look for the 12 dots? There they are. It says view, and it'll say speaker gallery. Go to speaker view, please. You'll see Dr. Jamil, and maybe I'm talking so I see myself, or you'll see me. And let's give all of our attention because tonight you can really get some great tips. So I'm going to pass it off to you, Dr. Jamil.
Wonderful, wonderful. With what something Julie just said that I want to just speak to, I wasn't planning on saying this, but it came up. I invite you to the possibility that if you're truly here tonight, you will get so much more than great tips. If you are really here tonight, your whole life will be changed. And I don't take that statement lightly. And so let's dive right in. And so I'm going to share my screen in a moment. Just confirm you can see this, and then I'm going to full screen it.
You're good to go.
Thumbs up if you can see that, please.
You got
Awesome.
it.
Okay. And for those of you, I think most of us are on video. If you're not on video and you are able to be, please do so. It's been shown both in research and in my own experience that when you show yourself on camera, you bring yourself into the room and you're allowing yourself to be seen and you're going to be more present versus being distracted, which we have a tendency in our culture to just get distracted somewhat easily. And so for today, I want this to be, or I invite you to allow this to be a wake-up call. When I think about a wake-up call, I think about it's a call for a better and a brighter future. I think about it's a call to new possibilities, and it's a call that declares that the future can be better than the past. And as you see this photo, you've got this beautiful sunrise. And what does the sunrise represent? Well, one thing it represents is a new day, and a new day with an opportunity for new decisions to be made to create a new future. But when Julie asked me to be here with you all, we're starting off the new year. We're in 2025. There's some aspects of 2024 and beyond that were great, and there's some aspects of it that didn't serve you. And as the old expression goes, what got you here won't get you there. And so if you keep bringing in aspects of the old that are not serving you, either because you know it but you keep doing it, or you're just not bringing awareness to it so you're not aware of it, you keep perpetuating the old pattern and you keep creating more of the same. And so today can be a wake-up call for you. And so if you're ready for that wake-up call, can you just raise your hand? Allow yourself to just be seen that I'm ready. I'm ready for something. I come from a space of you're here for a reason. And so whether it's because there's somebody else in this room that you need to meet, whether it's because we need to do some work together, whether it's because there's one nugget of wisdom you're going to get from this that's going to shift the way you relate to the people in your world, to your business, to whatever else, I'm open to all of that. And I ask you to be as well. And my also intention is that you won't be able to unsee what you see here today. And that's one of the greatest gifts I can give you. There we go. So first, I want to just take a moment. Julie, thank you so much to you and your team for having me. This is I think the second time I've gotten to be with you all at Zoom at 8 and our work together that you talked about a couple years ago. It's truly amazing to know you. And I remember when we first met. Yeah, like it feels like a long time ago. It was
I know.
beautiful. Each and every one of you who are here. I know there's so many other things you could be doing with your time. And Julie mentioned right at the start when I jumped on that New Year's has kicked off. Some people are still kind of getting back into the feel of it. Some people may not be here today. And so whether you're here live, you're on the recording, thank you so much for taking the time. I believe that our most precious, valuable assets, it's our time, our energy, our attention. And I don't take it lightly that you're here. And I ask you to really give yourself the gift of being here fully so that you can get the most out of it as possible. So quick background of how I can be valuable to you. I'm not going to repeat the bio that Julie shared,
Mhm.
but what I have found in my work is that there are invisible emotional, mental, and energetic performance blocks. And when I help you remove those, we can help you experience your 10-year goals in 10 months. I have seen that happen over and over and over again. And it's the biggest honor for me to support somebody where we're in conversation. I help you see yourself and your life differently. And then the real you shows up. We remove these blocks and miracles show up in your world. And so my intention today is to share with you a few aspects in the time we have together, things that I share with my clients, things that I've done in my own life that have been truly game-changing, needle-moving, not just a little, 5-10% increase, but like exponential needle moving if you actually apply it. And at the end, I have a gift for every one of you. And it's just my way of saying thank you for taking the time to be here and for having me. Is that cool? Awesome. Okay. So, two types of people, and you get to decide which one you want to be. So, one type of person will continue to function as they've done throughout their whole life, continuing to create more of the same results. I said earlier, what got you here won't get you there. If you keep doing the things that have gotten you here, excuse me, you're going to keep getting the same results or worse. The second, the other type of person, they're going to start doing the work that I'm going to lay out for you today. So I want you to imagine two pro athletes. I'll just pick basketball, but it could be whatever sport you want it to be. One athlete just lifts weights. The other athlete lifts weights. They focus on their nutrition. They practice the ball handling. They're making money. They're focusing on long-term wealth generation. They're networking around. They're watching game tape and footage. They're doing all these things. Over the course of the next 3, 5, 20 years, who's going to be more successful in basketball and in life? And the answer is the second one. Why? Because they did what it took to create the result. And so what I share with you today is the difference that makes the difference between average and extraordinary. It's what I have found to be the X factor in the work that I do with my clients. And so how many of you get that in real estate or in any industry that somebody might be in, it's like it can be competitive. And so if there's things that you don't know, if there's ways of being that you're not familiar with, that could be the thing that holds you back. And so that's what I want to shed a light on today for all of you. And so a couple quick things to get the most from today. You determine how much value you will receive from being here based on how you listen, how present you are, and how much you engage. So you get to decide right now, maybe my phone, I could put it to the side. I could turn it upside down. Maybe I can close Facebook, close my email, close something that's going to be distracting. Maybe I can take 5 seconds and call out to the people in the house and say, give me the next 40 minutes. It's the best gift you could give me. What could you do right now to be here more? How would you show up for this experience if you'd invested $100,000 to be here? If every single one of you had invested 100,000 and Julie's bank balance was just through the roof right now, how would you show up differently? I want you to really be with that. I've asked this question to people all around the world. Some people say, I wasn't planning on taking notes, but I would be taking a ton of notes. Somebody else would say, I'd watch this recording like 100 times. Somebody else would say, I'd make sure. One guy told me I would have been on time because he was late. And it's like coming from that space. And so how would you show up? Now, what's likely to happen when you show up on time or early, when you pay attention like your life depends on it, when you take notes, when you do all these things, you're going to get way better results. So now my question is, are you showing up this way consistently in your day-to-day life? Are you showing up in your relationship like it might be the last day? Are you showing up in your business with every person in front of you like they could be the portal or the gateway in a networking, let's say, sense to everybody you'd ever want to know? Are you showing up to every book that you read, event that you attend, or whatever? Like this is the one that could potentially unlock everything for me. And if the answer is no, why not? Because there's no real justified, they're all reasons are valid, but it's like, do you want to hold on to it? Is it useful? Does it serve you? And if you really get in your bones what I just shared with you, this alone, I could just end it right here, say thank you for having me and leave. And this alone is worth multiple 6 to 7 figures to you and your life for the rest of your life if you actually showed up this way. I come from a space of life and business or relationship games. If you show up like this, every single person will tell you, I've never been listened to like that before. They'll feel your presence. You'll be curious and you'll be interested in people, which makes you really interesting to them. And then from that space, your business takes off. If you're in an intimate relationship, they feel more appreciated, seen, and heard than ever before, and everything unlocks. If you have kids, your relationship with them goes through the roof. I've seen this happen over and over again. So it's not just how do you get the most from today in our conversation. This is how you get the most from today in life, because you only ever have one day, and it's today. That's the only day you've ever experienced. And so when you say, how do I get the most from today? That's how you do it. And if 100,000 is too low for you, add a zero. You want to add a second zero, third, fourth, keep going. How many zeros have to be there? And how would you show up if that was the case? I often ask my clients a powerful question that I pose to each and every one of you. And it's a question to just be with because it changes how you relate to the moment. What if this was the last time? I said it a few moments ago. If this was the last meal you would ever eat, would you rush through it or would you want to savor it? If that was the last sunset you'd ever see, and it was really gorgeous, would you just say, I've seen sunsets before? Or do you want to slow down and really take it in? This is the last time you were going to make love with somebody that you really cared about. Would you want it to last as long as possible, or would you want to rush through it? And it's meant to be a wake-up call, just like the title screen in this presentation. How are you showing up? So I want to share a brief story with you. I'll give you the abridged version because I can make this whole 40 minutes just this story. So I'll give you the 2-minute version. I'm going to share a story with you that's the foundation of why I do what I do. It's been the hardest moment in my life, and it lasted 3 years, and it changed everything for me. And I invite you to listen to this story not as it's something that's happened to me. Please listen to this story, how it relates to you. Because there's aspects of this story that you will see yourself in some way or another. And so, with this story, I was 19 years old. I'm an undergraduate in college. I'm part of this pre-med group. I'm not supposed to be home the weekend. It's a Tuesday. I'm not supposed to be home that weekend because I agreed to go to the Capitol to represent the group to fight to keep the funding so the state doesn't pull it. I told them I was going to be there. We leave Friday morning. We come back Sunday night. I told them, yes, let's do it. Tuesday night, Wednesday, Thursday, my intuition starts gradually getting louder and louder, yelling at me. Something's not right. Don't go. How many of you have ever had intuition come to you and you ignored it? And how many of you were glad that you ignored it after the fact? Usually it's a internal knowing and we deny it for whatever the reason. And I was very fortunate that night before we were supposed to leave, I listened and I said, I'm so sorry, something came up, I can't make it. Saturday, normal day. Friday was a normal day. Sunday morning, my whole life got turned upside down. My father had a brain aneurysm. He was behind a locked room. And for anyone who doesn't know what a brain aneurysm is, think of it like a blood vessel in the brain. Think of it like a tube starts to balloon out. And if you're fortunate, you have one of the worst headaches of your life, and you go to the hospital. Hopefully, they take care of you. And if you're not as fortunate, like my dad wasn't, it ruptured. Now he's in a 4-hour brain surgery. We're being told his chances of survival are less than 5%. It was the worst aneurysm the doctors had ever seen. I was 19. He was 49. He was behind a locked door. I broke the door down to get him out. And if I wasn't home, he would have died. Next thing you know, here's a photo of my dad. This was this a couple years before his aneurysm. Next thing you know, he's in the hospital in a 4-hour brain surgery fighting for his life. And I'm trying to be strong for my family, and I'm being told he could die at any moment. And he survives the surgery. Already a miracle. He's in a coma, and we're being told he could die at any moment, and he probably will never come out of this coma. I was very fortunate. And prior to this, to me sharing this, I had this immense sense of regret. In that moment, there I was looking at my father, and I'd never seen a human being in that vulnerable of a situation. And I had recognized that I'd taken my relationship with him for granted. I'd recognized that I didn't know him the way that I would have loved to because I bought into the story that I have time. I bought into the story that I'm 19, he's 49, I've got 30, 40, 50 more years. Like, I don't need to, what's the rush to get to know this man to man, soul to soul? I didn't think that way. My mindset was I was a track athlete. So it was like athletics, my friends, movies, video games, stuff like that. Not let me really get to know my dad. And I thought I had time. And then there I was after the fact thinking, I blew it. I messed this up. I'm being told he's going to die any second now, and I can't do anything about it. I was very fortunate that he survived 3 more years before he did pass away. And this was a photo of him after his brain aneurysm. And he would always do this thing. It was an Elvis Presley thing. The two fingers with the third one, it's peace with a little love on the side. That's what he would always do. And this was after his aneurysm. And in those 3 years, I took several years off after college to be one of his primary caregivers. I got to spend 10 to 15 hours a day with him. And I had my prayers answered on the one hand. I got to spend so much time with him. He became one of my best friends. And I also had some of my lowest lows. He had short-term memory loss, sometimes long-term memory loss. He forgot who I was at times. He was prone to seizures after that. He almost died in my arms a couple hundred times. And it was really scary. And it felt like I lost like my sense of my grounding. I lost my foundation. And one night I remember going to sleep and I tucked my dad into bed. He always needed somebody with him after that. And I walked away and the thought crossed my mind, what if that was the last time I was going to see my dad? And I just remember thinking that and realizing, well, that's also true about my mom and about my sister and about myself and everybody else. This might be the last time. So I started to show up with everything I had every time. I stopped holding back. I started loving people and making sure they knew how I felt about him. Well, I'm known for my hugs in person. And so one of my cousins gave me such a beautiful compliment. She said, I love your hugs. Every time you hug me, I feel like you're never going to see me again. And I remember that just hit me right in the heart because I was going for that. I just didn't put words to it like that. And I want you to just, I'm going to pause, make a quick preface here, not a preface, just insert this. Everything I shared today is highly intentional. Every aspect of the story you can use to apply to your business. And so when you think about this, I had just this huge wake up call in my own life in these experiences. And then it hit me. I started asking the question, when am I going to get my dad back? When's he going to go back to the way he used to be? Because maybe right now he's like 40% of what he used to be, physically, emotionally, mentally. And at one point it hit me, what's that question doing? That question is preventing me from being with this man as he is, because I've got some story that who he is right now is less than missing something defective, insert whatever phrase or word resonates with you. And then I realized, what if I played with the thought, this is the best he's ever going to get? And what if I can fall in love with him as he is here? And what if that was the unlock to him getting better? Side note, it was. But then it turned into, I'm going to just be with him fully and fall in love with him as he is. And it was amazing how my life just shifted, my perspective, everything just changed. And it felt like a spiritual catapult in terms of maturity. And at the end of the 3 years, my father passed away. And I remember being at his wake, and over 7,000 people came. Now, my father was a family practice physician. He was also one of the top Elvis impersonators in the world. He was on the cover of a book called The King and I. He's toured with Elvis's band. He's in the Elvis Presley Hall of Fame. He helped so many people, both in medicine, but also in his shows, a lot of charity work, all these beautiful things. He had so much life. And all these people came from all around the world, different, dress, cultures, religions, everything. And they almost all said, your dad saved my life. And I was so humbled by the impact. He died at 52, aneurysms at 49. Most of these people hadn't seen him since he was 49 and younger. And I thought, how amazing would it be to have an impact like that, where all these people, their lives were touched and they wanted to be here. But then I had a wake up call, another one, and I realized that I'd been playing small, that I'd been robbing the world of who I could be because I was afraid of rejection and I cared way too much about what people thought about me. How many of you can maybe relate to that at some point in your life? Yeah. And as a result of that, realizing that not only my father passed away at 52, really young, and the aneurysm at 49, two of my cousins in those 3 years passed away. One was 20, one was 21. And they were both sudden. And if you had asked either guy when they were 18, 19, tell me about your goals and your dreams and the life you have ahead of you, I promise you, neither guy would say, I'm going to be dead in the next 2 to 3 years. And so there's this old philosophy. The problem is you think you have time. I hope every single one of you have all of the time that you want. But none of us know. If I say, how much time do you have left? The answer is, I don't know. So what are you doing with the time you have left? This was the wake-up call stepping into 2025. Are you going to keep repeating the old patterns that aren't serving you? Or are you going to wake up and start really bringing all of you to your life, your relationships, your business, etc.? And so I realized in that moment that I wasn't doing that. And one of my top three favorite words now is enthusiasm. And it comes from entheos or antetheos. It means the God within. And when you radiate enthusiastically, you shine that uniqueness that is you. The world sees you. And when the world sees you, the people that are meant to be in your world find you. And then life changes so much from there. And so I want you to just play with a few questions as I wrap up this story. Where in my life right now am I holding back? Where am I living from fear and procrastination instead of faith and love? Where am I holding back in my relationships? Intimate relationships with my kids, friends, colleagues, coworkers. Where am I not letting that enthusiasm out, letting myself shine? And how much longer do I want to do that? How much longer am I going to have the goal and the dream and the vision and say, I'll do it tomorrow? Because tomorrow might not come, but you got now. What are you doing with it? Now, some people hear this story, and they think of it as just something that happens to me. And I want you, but some people hear this story and they see themselves in the story and they go, I'm going to start making some new decisions about my life. And so, for the sake of time, I'll keep this rhetorical. But after just hearing that story, did any new decisions get made of how you're going to live your life, how you're going to lead your business differently going forward? And I want you to really just take a moment, think about that. What's going to change? Because I can show up and give you all the strategies, but if who you're being is the old version of you, none of them are going to work. The new you has to come out to play. There's an old expression, in order for the new you to be born, the old you's got to die. And so we have to choose, what is it that's going to be a new decision that I will make going forward? So the three secrets that we're going to talk about today to just ignite the year and help you create the best 2025 you can create. There's more than three, but today we'll focus on three. So the first one is what I call the identity trap. There's a question on the screen here. Who am I? So the first question to be with is, how do you see yourself? And what are the stories that you tell about yourself? Because language creates. The stories you tell about your life and about your experience become your experience. If I ask you, how are you doing? How's your day been? How's your week been? What are your plans for the year? And if you respond in a discouraged, disempowered way, you will feel that. And so in that same way, some of you see yourself as creators, owners, and some of you consciously or not identify more as a victim. Life's happening to you. And so there's always a justification, or there's always a blame. There's always something, and you don't do anything to change your situation. But none of you are victims. We're all creators of our world. And you're so powerful, you can step into that role of being a victim. So there's a word identity, and I didn't know this until years ago, and I love this. In Latin, identity means repeated being. Some people will say, this is just who I am. That is not true. That's BS, belief systems. And it could be the other BS too. And so with that in mind, think of it like this. When you say, this is just who I am, what are you saying? You're saying who I am is a static, unchanging thing. Versus who I am, my identity is repeated being. So it's who I've repeatedly been so often, I have forgotten that it at some point was a choice, and now it's become habitual. And so I just think it's who I am. But because it's moment to moment, it can be changed. How do you choose to step into 2025? What's the version of you that you're going to retire? And what's the version of you that's ready to be born? There's a version of you right now who can create the entire life that you're wanting without any new strategy. You already have the network, you already have the tools, you already have the whatever. Doesn't mean more of that can't be helpful, but it's like you already have so much. Who are you being while you use it? And so your level of success will never rise higher than your self-identity. And so a couple of key distinctions to be with. I make a distinction. There's who I am and there's who I'm being. My paradigm, who I am, whole, perfect, and complete. It's just a manifestation of the divinity. And I believe that's who you are as well. There's who I'm being, though. Who I'm being is moment to moment to moment. Who I'm being could be a lot better. Who I'm being could be a jerk. Who I'm being could be frustrated, impatient, and pissed off. That is moment to moment. That's not me. It's not who I am. It's how I'm showing up in the moment. So in that first question, how do I see myself? Another way of saying that is, who am I being? So if I'm being frustrated, impatient, and pissed off, how many of you show up at your highest and best when you're in that state? And nobody, right? Because that's not where your highest and best lives. And so there's who I am, and there's who I'm being. Who I'm being changes. And then there's who I've been being up until this point, and there's who my dream or my vision is asking me to become. So, and I'm going to get to that in the second secret that'll really share this with you. Identify, what do you want in this year and beyond? What's the goal? What's the dream? And what is that dream asking you to become? If I were to say to you, can a six-figure minded person, six-figure identified person, business owner, let's say, consistently create a seven-figure business? The answer is no. And the reason the answer is no is because by definition, they don't see themselves in that way. So they'll never create that result consistently. There's this expression, seeing is believing. It's the opposite. It's believing is seeing. Napoleon Hill said it in Think and Grow Rich. Everything's created twice. First in the mind, then in actual physical reality. Everything started as an idea, including the version of you that you can bring into the world by choice and practice being. Being is about practice. You see somebody who seems really patient, they're an amazing listener. That took practice. Most of the people I know that are the best listeners, they were horrible listeners at some point. But people like to say, "Oh, I wish I was born that way. I didn't have that gene." It runs like impatience runs in the family. That doesn't make any sense. It's like when you come from that space, we're disempowering ourselves. So there's who I am and there's who I'm being. You can control who you're being. You can't change who you are, but you can control who you're being by bringing more conscious attention to it. And then once you know who you're being now, identify what's your dream calling you forth to, and make the choice to step into that. And as a just a I wasn't planning on sharing this, but as a bonus, whatever your goals and dreams are, identify what is the sacrifice you would need to make in time, in energy, in finances, in whatever else in order to have that. When you identify the sacrifice ahead of time, it's so much easier to make it when it's time to make the sacrifice. But if you don't identify the sacrifice and then you put in all this effort, energy, and time, and then you get to the point where the sacrifice needs to be made and you go, I'm not willing to make that sacrifice. Well, either you got to give up on the dream or you got to choose to make the sacrifice. And so when you identify ahead of time, what do I need to give up in order to have this? You always have to give something up to get something new. I'm spending my time right now with you. All of you are spending your time with me. None of us are doing anything else right now. So you're making a sacrifice to be here. In that same way, you choose to be in a relationship with someone. You're making a sacrifice. It's called everybody else. Like, what's the sacrifice that you're going to make to create the dream that you want? And can you be okay with it? If the answer is no, you got to change the dream or you got to find a way to be okay with it. The second secret is what I call the loop of limitation. And so, with this in mind, there are two ways to create the future. Most people create their future from their past. And this is what that means. This is who I have identified as my repeated being that I'm unaware of. This is who I've been up until this point. So this is what my family said about me. This is what the stories. These are the stories that run in the family. No one's ever gone to the college. No one's ever gone to college. Nobody's ever been an investor. No one's ever been financially successful. They've got these generational stories that get passed down. They put you in a box and they say, you're this kind of person. You're good at this. You're not good at that. And you've got your successes and your failures. And you've made some conclusions about that. I tried that before. I'm not cut out for that, which is not true. That's just a story. It means you didn't practice it long enough. But let's say it's like, okay, that's your story. And you say, because that's the way life has been up until this point, you project it out into the future. And you say, I guess this is going to be the way it continues to be. So you keep being the same version of you. You keep taking around the same kind of action. You keep saying yes and no to the similar things you've said yes and no to. You shy away from things that you've typically shied away from. And you just keep perpetuating the unserving habits. Not a surprise that tomorrow looks a lot like yesterday. But when you can say, is there another way? And I can promise you there is. So many of my clients have been in the real estate space, whether they're investors, brokers, loan officers, agents, whatever they're doing. I've worked with them. And just this distinction alone changes their entire world because what you can actually do is you can create the future from the future. Every one of us on the call right now, if we were all at a dinner party and there was a chef and the chef made this incredibly delicious meal and we said, that's amazing. Could you give us the recipe? I'd love to make that, for my family. And the chef said, I'll do you one better. Here's the recipe, the ingredients, all that. Here's the timing. Here's the mindset, like the why, the rationale. This is why you add this. This is why you add that, all of it. Can we agree that if you followed it to the T, you'd make something somewhat close? It may not be exactly the same, but it would be similar. And why? Because you know how to make it. You know the recipe. Now, if I ask you to create the future from the future, I'm asking you to go in your imagination, journal it, whatever you want to do, see future you in whatever way you do. How does that version of you show up? How does that version of you treat other people? What's the self-talk of that version of you? How does that version of you handle conflict? How does that version of you handle hearing the word no? How does that version of you deal with fear? What does that version of you do when you wake up and you don't feel like it, but you know there's something really important to be done? How does that version of you show up? And when you identify all of those things, what did you just do? You just proved to me and yourself that you know how to do it. You've got the recipe. And just like you can follow the chef's recipe, you can follow your own. I've had somebody told me years ago, I really wish I could be more confident. I'm just not that kind of person. And I said to them, what do you mean by that? And they described it. And I said, and I played dumb and I just said, well, what do you mean by confident? I don't know what that means. oh, this. And they start explaining it. I'm like, well, can you give me an example? And they were like, yeah, like Mary. And they start telling me all about Mary. And I said, well, give me an example. How would Mary show up? Mary would walk into the room and she would do this and she would do this and she would do that. Then what? How would she speak to herself and all these things? And they laid it all out. And I said, can I reflect back to you what I heard you just share? And they would say, sure. And I'd say, you're telling me you know exactly how to do it. You're just not doing it. And it's because they don't see themselves in that way, but they know exactly how to do it. And the thing, you can choose to start seeing yourself that way. Everything is unfamiliar until it's not. Everything requires practice. So you create the future from the future by thinking into the future. What's that version of me? And how can I step into being it now? Because if you take a look at the camera real quick, if this is you right now with all of your capabilities, and that's who you're capable of being, if you keep telling yourself one day, this version of me is going to wake up as this version of me, this will happen in your day-to-day life. And you will never catch up because these are two different realities. They never merge. The only way this becomes this is it's got to start being it now. So there's this version of you that you've been being. That's what you're capable of. You ask yourself, how would this version of me respond to the life experience I'm in right now? However uncomfortable that may feel. And you start acting in alignment with what this version of you would do. And over time, you grow. Over time, it becomes easier, more familiar. You practice that way of being, and you go from saying, I really wish I could be a better listener, more patient, more confident, more courageous, more bold, whatever, and you actually start being it. What if you could just let go of the story of who you used to be? Because the truth is that the past only exists in your memory and the future only exists in your imagination. Where are they right now? They're not real. The only thing that's real is the present moment. All that's real is now. The present moment is always pregnant with the next moment. So there's people on this call right now who would tell me, I really want a better future. Great. When's the only time you could make that happen? Now. So the more powerful decisions that you make, the more powerful transformations you create. I tell my clients that all the time. And so when you come from that space, what new decisions could I make starting now? The present moment is always pregnant with the next moment. You want a better tomorrow, you need a better now. That's the only way to do it. So make a list right after this call. What is a decision I could make? What could I step into? What phone call could I make? What could I schedule? Who could I reach out to? Look at your calendar. What's on there that doesn't belong there? What isn't on there that does belong there? And actually do it. It's incredible what happens when you just take the action. You don't have to necessarily feel like it. You don't have to believe in yourself. Just take the action. And by doing it, it's amazing how you learn along the way. And the third secret is what I call the fear of all in. And so, just for the sake of time, I will just do this myself. Think about what is the difference between being interested and being committed. I love this photo on the right where the paperclip is saying to the stapler, what do you mean I can't commit? And this idea that to me, being interested is like window shopping. Committed is here's the money. Being interested is if you were to tell me rather, you gave me a call right after this and you said, we live in the same area, and you go, hey, Jamil, I'm sorry for the late call. Can I ask you a big favor? And then I say, what's on your mind? Sure. And you say, can you take me to the airport tomorrow morning? And I go, what time? And then you say, I need to be there at 4 a.m. And I go, ooh, 4 a.m. Uh, well, I'm gonna sleep on it. I'll think about it. And if it's meant to be, I'll wake up at the right time. And if I feel like it, I'll come by and I'll pick you up. And then we get off the call. And someone that's at your house says, is Jamil taking you to the airport tomorrow? No, that's the answer. And the thing is that you can't count on that. And so can you now go around and live the rest of your life and do whatever you got to do that night? No, you got to call somebody else. Because in that way I was interested. I wasn't interested in that moment, but it's like interested, not committed. Alternate reality. You give me a call and you say, Jamil, 4 a.m., can you be there? And I'll say, Julie, I will be at your house at 3:15. I'll have your favorite drink waiting for you and I'll get you there early. Then you get off the call and somebody says, is Jamil taking you to the airport? Yep. I'm like, how does that feel? What's the difference? You can count on one, you can't count on the other. So now, question for you as a reflection, can you count on you? Can your family count on you? Can your team count on you? Do you actually follow through and do what you say you're going to do when you said you were going to do it? And I never share anything with shame, blame, or guilt. I say this with the most love and respect possible for each and every one of you. You could be showing up a whole lot better. That applies to me too. You could be showing up a whole lot better than you are. You're capable of it right now. What could be possible if you shifted into more commitment? What could be possible if it's not a maybe we'll see, I'll try. It's absolutely yes, you can count on me. And then you lived it. You did it because you said you would. And so then the question is, what are you committed to? And this question is so powerful right here. Most people think their commitment is what they're going to have. Like, this is my dream. Like, one day, that's my commitment. Your commitment is not to what you're going to do. Your commitment is to what you already have. That is why you have it. I want to repeat that. Your commitment is not to what you're going to do. Your commitment is to what you already have. That's why you have it. Anything that you've really wanted, that you've been working towards, either you have it or you're making progress towards it. But if you say you really want it and it's been months, years, and there's no progress, it's interest, it's not commitment. You are powerful. Don't delude yourself into thinking otherwise. You are a powerful creator. And when you want it, you find a way. And so when it comes from that space, your commitments to what you already have, that's why you have it. So identify what's my life like right now, financially, my fitness, my relationships, my whatever. And and then the questions become, well, I'll go back to that. My questions become, what have I been committed to up until this point? My results will tell me that. And then, do I want to continue to be committed to that? No blame, shame, guilt, just a new awareness. Do I want to continue to be committed to this, or is there something more extraordinary that I'd love to be committed to? And if you identify that, who's that dream calling me to be? Write that down and then practice it. Practice being all those things: bold, courageous, loving, whatever, understanding, whatever it might be. There's this distinction I share called the mother's commitment. And for any of you that if you're a father, this applies as well. And if you don't have any kids, you can still wrap your mind around this. If I spoke to a parent, in this case, a mother, and they had a 4-year-old child, and I said, let me ask you a question. First thing that comes to your mind, will your daughter, will your son starve? And everyone says no. And I'll say, well, you sound awfully certain about that. How do you know that's true? I'm like, because I'm not going to let that happen. Like, they're not going to starve. And I'll say, but what if you're out of food? Well, I'm going to go to the grocery store. But what if the grocery store is closed? I'll go to another one. What if that one's closed? I'll get it from family. I'll steal it. Like, they have a way. And I'll say, my kid's not going to starve. Now, your business, your dream is your baby. You've birthed it, and now you're growing it, you're nurturing it, you're building it. Will your business starve? Can you have the same certainty that a parent who says, my kid's going to eat, I will find a way? And if you say no to that question, excuse me, it will reflect in your results. But if you can look at your life right now and say, I'm all in on this, whatever it is that I'm saying is so important to me, my business will not starve. And I'm committed to showing up that way. It is powerful if you get that. If you really get that, it's another one of those moments that throughout this presentation, there's single sentences that can be worth not just your time invested being here, but can be worth 6 to 7 figures in your life going forward if you actually show up that way. And I often tell people, show me your calendar, show me your planner, show me your bank statement, your bank balance, let's say. How you spend your time, how you spend your money, that will tell me what you're committed to. You could tell me nothing's more important to me than this. And I say, show me your calendar. Where is that thing on your calendar? Because the moment it becomes, oh yeah, nothing's more important than my health. Where's your workouts and where's your meal prep if you do that? And where's your meditation or where's your whatever on the calendar? Because if it's whenever I have time, I do it, you're going to get busy and you're not going to have time. Where's date night on the calendar? You say nothing's more important than your partner. Where is the, learning time? Where's time for you to just relax and decompress? Like, where's that? If whatever you value, put it in the calendar, put it in the schedule, actually prioritize it. It changes everything for you going into the new year. Some of you already do this. Awesome. Lean into it deeper. Some of you don't do this, and just by doing that one thing, that'll rock your entire 2025. And so, as we begin to wrap up, a couple of justifications that kill your results. I often tell people argue for your limitations and you get to keep them, argue for your possibilities and you get to create them. So, the justifications I have seen the most, I call them the dirty dozen. I'll do it on my own. I don't have the time. Self-care isn't a luxury I have right now. I need to be perfect before I can take the next step. No one can do it better than I can. My net worth is my self-worth. If I slow down, I'll lose momentum. I can figure it out on my own. If I'm not busy, I'm not productive. I have to stay in control. It's too risky to change what's working. I'll lose everything if I fail. How many of you can relate to one or more of those? Yeah. I have shared this with people who have told me they've got one of them, they've got five of them, they've got all 12. And there's more that are not on this list. Just one of these, in my experience and with people I've worked with, just one of these will cost you multiple 6 and 7 figures. It'll cost you relationships. It'll cost you your health because lost performance, missed opportunities, things that you just end up not taking for, you take it for granted and you don't put attention on it. If you actually choose to let these go and put in the work required to shift out of these, it is incredible what happens. And so what nobody talks about, in my experience, what actually drives results? You've got results on the bottom here. Results just mean what happens. You always create results. Some people say, oh, I didn't get the result. No, no, you always get a result. Whether it was what you wanted or not, that's a different story. But you always get a result. So some people get down on themselves when they get a result. They get discouraged and they stop trying. That's not useful. But if you can come from a space of, all right, I got this result. How did that happen? How did I create that? Get curious. Well, there's some action that you took or didn't take that created that result. And that action, there's a dual, up and down interaction here. How you feel influences how you act, and how you act influences how you feel. And I'm going to be adding another arrow to the, because feelings and thoughts can also happen simultaneously, but they can be mutually arising. But often your feelings can follow your thoughts. So what most people do is they focus on mindset, which is the thought side of it, or they focus on action. Both of those matter. Both of those are very important. The challenge is that that's not where it starts. And if you don't actually get to the root, you're going to miss it. Because what actually drives your results is what I call your core blueprint. The difference between you creating all the results you want and you trying and failing is the programming that you have that often happened when you were younger. It could be when you were a child. It could have been as you were older. It could have been generationally inherited. Often you see that with financial beliefs and things of that nature. But there's primary drivers that you're not even conscious of that are driving the show. And if you've caught yourself in certain points in your life having a glass ceiling, you keep getting around the same amount of money, or you get your weight to around the same point, or you keep attracting the same kind of person in a relationship, or certain things continuously rather aren't happening the way you want them to. It's because you have a core blueprint, a core belief that does not, let's say, resonate with the goal that you're wanting. And until you clear that out, it isn't going to go away on its own. That core blueprint changes everything. And so if we were to just dive into what are the things that often hold people back, I call them the four horsemen of your apocalypse. And I really just want you to pay attention as much as possible to these four, because these four, one or more of these four are holding you back right now. The first is what I call the mask of mediocrity. And so many high performers, we wear a mask. I did this for so much of my life. I told you there I was at my dad's funeral, and I realized I was afraid of what people thought about me, afraid of rejection, all these things. I was wearing that mask, living as who others believed that, I'll actually just read this. Living as who they believe others want them to be, while their true self remains hidden. This leads to frustration, self-doubt, and the sense that they're playing small, despite knowing they're capable of so much more. When the mask is removed, they unleash their authentic power, feel deeply fulfilled, and confidently create the extraordinary life they're meant to live. People I've worked with have told me just by removing that mask of mediocrity, that by itself was worth their entire investment in our work. The second thing that gets in the way, I call it the heart cage. There's suppressed emotions. There's fear, guilt, anger, rejection, and more. And they become a cage that traps energy and limits connection, joy, and peace. And these unprocessed emotions, they weigh heavily. They lead to burnout, isolation, stress. And when the cage is unlocked, you experience emotional freedom, deeper relationships, and the vitality needed to thrive in your life and leadership. The third horseman, as I call it, a mental prison. And this is a big aspect of the core blueprint. It's disempowering beliefs you have about yourself, your abilities, life, the other people, the world. This creates the invisible prison, the glass ceiling, keeps you stuck in the cycles of self-sabotage, underachievement. This is just the way that I am, all these type of things. And these thoughts undermine your confidence, they block opportunities. By breaking free of this, you unlock a mindset of empowerment, you take bold action, and you step into the greatness you're capable of. Notice the first three, these all work together. You fix one of them, it's amazing what happens, but you fix all four, and it's like you have anchors on your ankles and you just cut them and you just fly. The fourth is what I call the fog of uncertainty. Without clarity on who you are, your values, or your purpose, many high performers feel lost, stuck, or stagnant despite their success. This fog leads to frustration and hesitation, robbing you of momentum. Clearing this the fog brings crystal clear focus, renewed passion, and the confidence to build the life fully aligned with your deepest truth. And so we've got these four, the four horsemen. Take 10 seconds right now. Just identify which of these four have been running the show for you for months, years, decades. When I speak to so many of my clients and I say, on average, how long have these been in your life for? Decades, 20, 30 years or more. And it's like, well, what is that costing you to keep holding on to these? And they realize I can't keep having these. I have to let these go. This caused my divorce. That caused my business to fail. This caused me to lose my health, whatever it might be. And by releasing it, you free yourself from it. And it's amazing what becomes possible. And the four horsemen's impact, basically just I said all that. And so most people who've achieved a degree of success, they're not often willing to admit these are the things that are going on. I feel like we've been conditioned in our society to just try to look like we have it all figured out, try to look like life is just great, and we've been conditioned to not ask for help. We've been conditioned to think asking for help means something's wrong with us, deficient with us, that we're weak or something like that. Asking for help is what strong people do. Like that's one of the most powerful things you could do. So look at your life right now. Where could you ask for help? Where could you lighten the load that you've been carrying? Where can you release whatever's been holding you back? Because when you don't, this is what happens in your world. Just read these as they're coming up for yourself. And it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. I've seen this happen. I said earlier in the beginning, nothing lights me up more than seeing people fully alive, loving themselves, loving their life. And I want that for each and every one of you. And whether we do that together, whether you do that with somebody else, whether you figure it out on your own, doesn't have to be the way that it's been. Because you're the Ferrari, but you've got one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake, and you're flooring both. And you're wondering why you got all this potential, all this horsepower, and you're not moving because you don't know how to get your foot off the brake. And that's why people bring me in. That's the unlock, releasing the blockage so you actually take off and create the results that you want. And so think about this. What's worth the next 30 years of your life? You journal just on this question. That's worth your time being here. What is worth the next 30? Raise the number if you want. 30 years, 60 years, 50 years, whatever it might be. What's worth the next X number of years of your life? Because everything you say yes to without thinking about this question, you're saying no to what's actually worth the next 30 years of your life. There's opportunity cost everything. When you say yes to one, you're saying no to something else. What's worth it for you? And then begin making your decisions this year in alignment with this. And so I said in the beginning, I have a gift for each and every one of you. I'm going to put a link in the chat in a moment. This is a full 1 hour experience with me where you bring a challenge, you bring a problem. This is not a sales call. I offered this in a previous talk I gave, powerfully transformed this woman's life in one conversation. And she says to me at the end, thank you so much for actually giving what you promised. And I looked at her, I said, well, you're welcome. And what do you mean? And she said, most people who promise something like that, they try to sell me something for 45 minutes. You actually just treated me like I already paid you. And I said, I'm treating you like my highest paying client right now because that's what I told you I was going to do. Bring a challenge, bring a problem, bring a goal, bring a dream. You got a 10-year dream? Let's collapse that and set you up to make it real in 10 months. You've got a problem or a challenge. Let's bring some awareness to that that's different that you've never thought about before. Get you questioning things to actually create the solution as soon as possible. And so this was a woman that I gave this experience to 2 weeks ago. After speaking with Dr. Jamil in a single conversation, I am flying high. The time I spent with him was more valuable than the time I've spent with my coach for the past month. I'm so grateful for the gift he's given me. And her video is just, she's glowing. And she made it like a few minutes after our call. And so with that in mind, you can scan this QR code and I'll also it'll bring you to the page if you choose to book that call. And if this has resonated with you, I believe it resonates for a reason. It says here on the top, you're one decision away from a totally different life. On the bottom here, you've got different social media ways of connecting with me. You've got a podcast that I've been on for almost 3 years now. And it's an incredible opportunity to learn from the different guests that I brought on, the wisdom they share. And most of my clients tell me listening to that podcast feels like being in a coaching session with you. And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen in a moment. I'll put in the chat a link. Thank you so much for your time, your energy, your attention. And if we do have a few minutes, if there's any questions I could answer, if there's any insights you've gotten from today, if you want to share anything that came up for you that you're going to change going forward that might inspire somebody else here, I'd love for you to take a moment to do that. And I'll put that link to connect in the chat.
How wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Jamil. That was incredible. I've heard you speak many, many times, and that Dirty Dozen continues to shine its light, which I don't want it shining its light, to see some of the things that I want different results. So I appreciate that, bringing that up to everyone here in the room and the audience. Is there anybody in the audience that has a question or a comment, concern? Love to have Dr. Jamil answer or give you some insight.
And if I may just, well, while people are thinking, just to share something, very often, if there's an insight you had, something that you go, that stood out to me, that could be the thing that changes somebody else's life. That could be the thing they were waiting for. It could be nothing that I shared. It could be something that you shared in the way that it stood out to you. So if there's a question, if there's a comment, it would be wonderful for everyone if you would share it.
Tia, anything that resonated with you?
I mean, there was a lot of really interesting things that I resonate with in terms of identifying with, for sure. I mean, I think the fundamental access point, I feel like is, generally speaking, we don't really relate that or constitute who we are as our word. So therefore, we are reactive in nature. So, getting past that and having practices that keep you in the present to be able to have access to be creative and not in the past or in the future. I mean, that is the dilemma of all people. And until you, at least for me, until I kind of got to a point where there was absolutely nothing on the exterior that made me happy, that is really kind of what pushed it over for me to be able to cultivate new ways of being that allowed me some access to some freedom and fundamentally, any access to happiness or fulfillment.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing.
I knew, Tia, you would had some insight on that. That's great. Anybody else? Don't be scared.
Thing, if I can just, while people are thinking, I got a message that the link wasn't working the way that I thought it was. And so if I can just share this screen one more time, it's set the QR code if anyone's wanting it. And if anyone has a question, this could be a really beautiful opportunity to get an answer, to get some support, or just get some clarification on anything that was here that might not have made as much sense.
Well, I so appreciate you being here. It's such a great way to start out the new year, bringing some awareness of where we are today, where we want to go, and the possibilities are endless. And with your help and and assistance, helping us bring awareness and really following what is so important to each one of us. You've got such a great gift for that. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Julie.
And Dr. Jamil, obviously he'd love to work with you. Bring in something that is holding you back, and take the opportunity to see if you can better yourself in that 45 minute or an hour meeting. It is well worth it. I saw Dr. Jamil speak originally. That's what attracted me to him. And you know, he's kind of like peanut butter. You just want to spread him around. And he is worth the time and energy. He puts out so much to create a great space for each one of us. So, Alex, did you have a question?
No, I just wanted to say that A, linked works, so no
Perfect.
issue there. But the other thing I did want to mention, so unfortunately I joined probably a few minutes late, and I don't know the title of your talk, but I thought the proper title would be "The Power Within." And I think I'm borrowing the title from someone else, and perhaps Tony Robbins, but it certainly reminded me of some of the things that I've heard, and the whole idea that, especially those four horsemen. If you don't mind, I took the screenshots of those just to remind myself.
Yeah.
Extremely powerful. So thank you for staying with us and sharing with us, and thank you, Julie, um, for inviting Doctor to the meeting.
Ab-
And Happy New Year.
Absolutely. So great to see you, Alex. All right, Dr. Jamil, thank you so much. We're going to get into breakouts. Oh, did you have a question?
If I can just respond to Alex. So first of all, Alex, thank you so much for what you shared. I'm glad that this was so meaningful for you. And your suggestion of, the power within. If you took this entire presentation, so much of it is about that. So much of it is, what if as a possibility you tried on, I can tap into the power within starting today, not needing to wait for anything else to happen to begin dramatically shifting my life, but it doesn't have to start dramatic. It can start as one tiny step. It can be 1% of a different thing that you do, but you've got input and output. Same input equals same output. If you change the input, you will change the result. And by shifting, if you go from, I really want to be in shape, but you never take care of the body and you never work out, and then you start doing something, immediately you're going to be more in shape than you would be otherwise. But if you keep making the 1%, the 5%, the 10% changes, before you know it, your body changes. You might say, I really want to be financially free, but you've got no system currently for managing your money, for investing your money, and all these kind of things. How are you going to get there? But if you start implementing it now in whatever way you can, that power within moves the needle for you so much. I want to close with just a quote. A mentor of mine shared it with me. Nobody is coming to save you. You save yourself. And that's the good news. When you think that someone's coming to save you, you wait. And then you end up waiting forever. When you realize you save yourself, now saving yourself could be you reach out for help, but you save yourself because only you can move you, only you can take the action. And so, how could you save yourself? What's worth the next 30 years of your life? Thank you again.
So powerful. Thank you so much. So helpful for all of us.